Hello!
Welcome back.
Good to see you all again.
And good to be seen.
Isn't it just? And welcome to this special one about yarn weights.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So we've got our balls out, haven't we? Yarn can be weighed in balls. 100 gram ball, 50 gram ball.
Yes, this is also a 100 gram ball.
Yeah. And that's weight as in the measurement.
Yes, how much?
Yeah, but you can also call yarn by its weight, which is by the thickness.
Yep.
Now, back in the
Confusing.
day when yarn was made, it was spun.
Yes, and we have a video all about people doing that.
Spun into a ply, so like one thing, very generalised, I know.
But back in the day, before today.
Here in the UK, they would use 4 plies to make the yarn.
Yes.
Okay, and that's 4 ply. Back in the day, 4 ply would be 4 plies.
Yes.
And it would be called knitting weight wool. And you've got that there. We've got the wonderful West Yorkshire spinners.
Beautiful.
Such a popular 4 ply, and it's great for socks.
Yes.
It's great for shawls. It also makes lovely jumpers. 4 ply is, because it's such a thin yarn, it can have great stitch definition.
So you would knit, so it'd be quite a lightweight sweater.
Would indeed, yes.
Rather than if you were going for your chunky.
Yeah, a lot of my ladies here on the Friday, my Friday gang, love knitting with 4 ply. So we've upped our 4 ply intake.
I'm slowly coming to enjoy it because I'm making my first pair of socks, which we've talked about before, and it's taken a while to get used to working with it because it's so very fine.
Indeed. If you're using 4 ply, you would probably then have a 3.25 millimetre needle, or UK sizes. Back before we were metric, we would have the British standard wire gauge, so you would use a size 10. So that needle, I think, actually even has 10 on it. It's one of the old school needles.
It does indeed.
Yeah, but nowadays all needles come in metric, so 3.25.
Yes.
It's a lovely fine needle for lovely fine yarn.
Yes.
Now, the only sticking point comes is in this modern day and age, yarn companies, when they're making yarn, they don't necessarily stick to 4 plies making a yarn. Because we've got sophisticated machines, you might get a 4 ply weight, or as what we would call it, knitting weight yarn, made up of 2 plies, made up of 1 ply. Because machines spin it. It's no longer one person spinning it. So like this chunky here, for example. So you're not, chunky you think would be made up of many plies. This chunky here is made up of 3 plies.
Yeah.
3 thick plies of wool. If I was going to put 4 plies with that, and add another 4 ply, what would you get?
This is the trick question, isn't it?
Well, when they started knitting with knitting weight wool, weirdly, back in the day, they did want something a bit thicker. So actually, what did they do?
They went for an 8 ply?
They did. They went for 8 ply, and what did they call it?
8 ply.
Even more obvious. DK. Double knit.
Ah, that's
double
clever.
Knit.
Oh, you see, I knew there was some sort of trick question here.
So it's why we call it double knit.
Oh.
Because they wanted something thicker, so it was made up of 8 plies.
But I'm guessing that's no longer the case.
No longer, because if you count how many plies are there, because we've got modern technology, machines, you don't need 8 plies.
I've got 3 in this one.
Yeah.
So this is 3-ply.
So this is where it sometimes gets a bit confusing. So I know the Americans, when we say it's 4-ply, but they think that it's actually there are going to be 4 plies to it, but not always necessarily. We called it 4-ply because it was called knitting weight wool, and it was made up of 4 plies back in the day. But that's why we called it double knit, because when double knit was invented, it was literally double knit of knitting weight wool.
So it was double the knitting weight wool.
Yeah, so we had 8 plies.
I couldn't understand why it was called double knit. I'm so glad you told me. People.
Yeah. So classic double knit wool, which will knit most things, babies' jumpers, standard jumpers.
Yeah.
Uses a 4mm needle. And
US size 5. I'm only reading that because it's on the label.
Yes, because they've got different. And then old British
Standard
an 8.
Yeah.
So we've gone 4 plies to 8 plies, which no longer actually using 8 plies. Good. Double knit. Boom, done. Great, hey?
And I now understand double knit. Yes. Thank you.
Our next size up is Aran weight here in the UK. Aran weight. Chunkier.
Yes.
And thicker, uses a 5mm needle.
Yeah.
If you were going back and tracing the roots when it was made up, it might have been made up with 10 plies. So 4, 8, 2 more extra to be a little bit thicker, 10 ply.
My first jumper was made with this, wasn't it?
I think it's my favourite weight of yarn.
So squishable.
Yeah.
And it's easy to work with and it's accessible. So if you're new to knitting jumpers and things, it's quite an accessible weight.
Yeah, it will obviously knit up quicker because it's a thicker yarn.
Which you need that positive reinforcement when you're knitting a jumper for the first time.
And it's just it's a good warm sweater when you want that in the winter, isn't it?
And they reckon, so we have a 5mm needle on the back, which US size 8 or UK size
5mm or old UK will be 6.
Yes.
Yeah. And that I think that's my favourite one. Have you got a favourite one that you like knitting weight wool?
What wool do you use most frequently? Should be do you knit a lot of socks or what do you knit with most frequently?
And we sell that in 50-gram balls. Mm-hmm. Some shops, some brands sell it in great massive 200-gram balls or 400-gram balls.
So that's enormous.
Yeah, they are. I haven't got enough room for them here, but that would get you a whole jumper. I was going to
say, you don't need one of them.
You'd only need 2 or 3 of those for a whole jumper.
That's mad.
Whereas with this brand,
what would you call a ball that big? You know the way you've got cakes and you've got...
I don't know, actually. Never thought about that. I don't know whether it's just big balls. Then we go on to chunky. Good old chunky. Now, the Americans have got chunky. They call it bulky. But we call it chunky. 6mm needles or old UK 4. Lovely.
Don't know if you can see it with the yellow background. Do a close up.
And this is another one of those. This is a brand new yarn that we've had this year, Retreat. But remember we were talking about plies? How many plies are in there?
That looks like 1.
Yeah, exactly. That is 1. So they've spun it and they have just spun it out. And that is it. That's called roving yarn. So when you unply it, it literally is the fleece.
Yeah.
Now, some people don't like knitting with roving because of that. If you pull it hard, what's going to happen?
It just snap.
It will just snap because you haven't got the other plies twisted.
New demonstration.
I know, it was a new one there. For the strength.
Yeah.
So a lot of people won't like that. Easy to split. Your needle can go through it. But there's something quite...
But it's incredibly squishable.
Yeah, and raw about it because it is...
You'd have to be careful with that type of yarn for washing and things, I would guess, with the roving.
Because of of how little it's processed.
Yeah.
So that's chunky or bulky. So they're pretty much our 4 main ones.
Yeah.
You've then got...
Super chunky,
which is great to knit with.
Yeah.
You're looking at what old standard wire gauge needle 0 or 00 or 0.
0.
There you go.
That's a tickle me. I was like, I go 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
But probably a 9mm, 10mm hook or a needle. And metric, I knitted the Thunderhead beanie with 10mm needles, and it's great. You can knit a beanie hat in an evening out of one ball.
It's amazing.
And it's lovely to knit a jacket or a jumper in that. It'd be super heavy but super warm.
Oh yeah,
great.
It'd be, if
super
you get,
quick.
I was going to say cold winters. Be a good one to do.
Yeah.
I'm just looking, we have a jumper behind us that has been knitted up in,
that's in the
chunky. That's marble chunky.
Marble chunky, yeah. We do like that one. They've got worsted, and that comes in the middle between our DK and our Aran. So hold up your DK.
So is there a big difference in the worsted? Because there's not a big difference in these two.
No. So worsted is just a finer Aran.
But not as fine as a DK.
No, a little bit thicker than a DK. But this is where
there's not much in it.
No, because the pattern. Remember, when I knitted the Montrealer pattern.
Yeah.
Designed by Dells recommends a worsted weight, but I used a DK.
Yes.
Because my DK, when I did my gauge, was actually a thick DK. So it could be used as a worsted, and this is where it gets very complicated.
Yes. So you have to go in and look at your yarn.
You do, and you have to. And if you're doing a special project, I think you do have to then do a gauge swatch, because some companies, and I hear it every day. Ooh, that's a thick double knit. Ooh, is that an Aran weight? It looks a bit thin. And some companies, Aran is a thinner Aran, and they actually recommend a 4.5mm needle rather than the 5. You could actually use that as a double knit, because if you put it on a 4mm needle, it'll just knit up denser. Oh, amazing.
Don't, you're just going to confuse me even more.
So just think 5 for us UK. You've got 4-ply, double knit, Aran, chunky, super chunky. Boom, done. And that is basically the UK guide to knitting weights and yarn sizes.
Fabulous, thank you. Did not know about the double knit.
I know, it's a good one.
I like that. Thanks a million for watching. Please like and share and leave a message and subscribe and all of the good things. Get involved.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Bye.